The diplomatic chamber on Meridian 7 smelled like recycled air and broken promises. Ambassador David Cole had attended 47 of these meetings in the past 3 years, and each one felt more pointless than the last. 12 species sat around the circular table, their translators humming softly as they argued about trade routes and mining rights. David listened with half his attention while reviewing supply reports from the outer colonies on his tablet. The Harvan delegation occupied the largest section of the table. Their chitinous bodies gleamed under the artificial lights, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement or contempt. David had never learned to tell the difference. Their lead negotiator, a creature named Torin, had spent the last hour explaining why the Harvan Concordat deserved exclusive rights to the outer spiral territories. The lesser species simply lacked the strength to defend such valuable space, Torin said, his translator rendering the words in flat, mechanical tones. It is natural order. The strong take what they need. David's tablet buzzed. He glanced down, expecting another routine update. Instead, his blood turned cold. The message header read Priority Alpha Colony Defense Network. His fingers moved automatically, opening the file. Video footage began playing on the small screen. Harvan warships dropping out of hyperspace above New Portland. Orbital bombardment, cities burning, the death toll climbing in real time. He switched to the next colony. New Sacramento, the same scene. Harvan ships, civilian targets, no evacuation warnings. The third colony, Brighton's Hope, showed worse footage. Residential districts turned to glass, farms vaporized, schools destroyed while children were still inside. The numbers at the bottom of the report made his hands shake. 2.3 million dead, still counting. The attacks had been coordinated, simultaneous, thorough. This was not a military operation. This was extermination. David looked up. Torin was still talking, describing the Harvan military superiority with obvious pride. The other species around the table remained silent. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed bored. A few appeared quietly satisfied. David stood. His chair scraped against the floor, and every translator in the room fell silent. All eyes turned toward him. He carefully placed his tablet on the table, the video footage still playing. Burning cities. Falling bodies. Children running from weapon strikes they could not outrun. "You should not have done that," David said. Torin's mandibles clicked in what David now recognized as laughter. "Done what, human? Taken what is ours by right of strength." "Check your intelligence feeds," David said quietly. "Look at what your military just did to 3 of our colony worlds." Several species immediately accessed their own networks. David watched their expressions change as they saw the same footage he had. The Harvan delegation showed no such concern. Torin leaned back in his seat, his posture radiating satisfaction. "Ah, the cleansing operation," Torin said. "Yes, we removed your illegal settlements from Concordat space. Pest control, nothing more. Those worlds now belong to the Harvan, as they always should have." 2 members of the Harvan delegation made sounds that the translators interpreted as laughter. Around the table, the other species stayed quiet. The Ularn representative looked away. The Kelvin delegate studied the ceiling. No one spoke in humanity's defense. David gathered his tablet and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. "Where are you going, human?" Torin called after him. "Do you retreat so easily? This is why your kind will never matter in galactic affairs. You lack the strength to take what you want." David stopped at the doorway but did not turn around. "I am going home, and I suggest you prepare your people for the consequences of what you have done today." "Consequences?" Torin's laughter grew louder. "What consequences could you possibly impose? You have no fleet, no weapons worth mentioning. You are merchants and talkers, nothing more." "Yes," David said. "We are merchants and talkers. We chose to be those things. Remember that when you wonder why we chose differently." He left Meridian 7 on the last human transport. Within 6 hours, every human ship in galactic space received the same message. Return home immediately. All diplomatic missions terminated. All trade agreements suspended. All scientific exchanges canceled. Every human vessel, from the largest cargo hauler to the smallest research scout, turned toward Earth and vanished into hyperspace. The galaxy noticed, of course. Human traders had established routes through 40% of known space. Human diplomats had negotiated peace between species who had fought for generations. Human. Scientists had shared discoveries freely, asking nothing in return. For 60 years, humanity had been the galaxy's bridge builders, the connectors, the ones who made communication possible between species who shared nothing else in common. Now they were gone, every embassy empty, every trade post abandoned, every collaboration ended without explanation. The human quarter on Meridian 7 stood dark and silent for the first time since the station's construction. The Harvans celebrated. They moved immediately to claim the abandoned human facilities, the empty trade routes, the research stations left behind. Torin gave speeches about Harvan supremacy, about culling the weak, about the natural order asserting itself. Other species watched and calculated. Some saw opportunity in the vacuum humanity left behind. Others felt uneasy, remembering that humans had always seemed too patient, too willing to negotiate, too eager to find peaceful solutions. That kind of patience could mean wisdom. It could also mean restraint. 3 weeks passed. Human space remained completely silent. No transmissions, no ships crossing the borders, nothing but emptiness where humanity used to be. The galaxy began to assume Earth had retreated, had accepted their place in the natural order Torin kept describing. The strong took what they wanted and the weak disappeared. It was, as the Harvan kept saying, only natural. But deep in the darkness between stars, humanity was not retreating. They were preparing, and the galaxy was about to learn the difference between those two things. Fleet Admiral Torin reviewed the expansion plans with deep satisfaction. The holographic display showed 89 Harvan systems, each one marked in the crimson of Concordat control. Soon, another 15 systems would join them. The human territories were ripe for claiming, their defensive stations abandoned, their settlements empty of anyone who might resist. "The outer spiral is ours," his tactical officer reported. "No resistance detected. The humans left everything behind, factories, refineries, even their agricultural platforms." Torin clicked his mandibles in approval. As expected, they are cowards who hide behind words. When words fail, they have nothing left. His communication officer interrupted. "Admiral, we are receiving reports from Border Patrol. 3 scout ships have failed to check in from Sector 7. "Equipment malfunction," Torin said dismissively. "Have maintenance crews investigate when convenient." But the reports kept coming. 5 more scouts went silent. Then a patrol group of 9 ships. Then an entire surveillance network along the border went dark. 24 hours after the first disappearance, 47 Harvan vessels had simply stopped transmitting. Torin stared at the tactical display. The missing ships formed a pattern along the border with what used to be human space. Not random failures, something systematic. Send the Third Fleet to investigate, weapons active. Whatever is causing these malfunctions needs to be eliminated. The Third Fleet consisted of 200 warships, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen planets. They jumped into Sector 7 with sensors at maximum range, weapons primed, crews at battle stations. Torin watched the operation from his command center, expecting to find debris from the missing scouts or perhaps some kind of spatial anomaly. The Third Fleet found nothing. No debris, no anomalies, no trace of the missing ships. They conducted a thorough sweep of the entire sector, scanning every asteroid, every dead moon, every cubic meter of empty space. Then they stopped transmitting too. All 200 ships, simultaneously, no distress calls, no weapon signatures, no indication of what happened. One moment they were there, reporting normal readings. The next moment, silence. Torin felt something he had not experienced in his entire military career. Uncertainty. The strong did not simply vanish. The strong conquered or died fighting, but his ships were not fighting, they were just disappearing. "Mobilize the Fifth Fleet," he ordered. "Full battle configuration. They are to proceed to Sector 7 and determine what is happening to our forces. The Fifth Fleet was larger, more powerful, better equipped. 300 warships, including 5 dreadnoughts, the largest vessels in the Harvan arsenal. If something hostile lurked in Sector 7, the Fifth Fleet would crush it or die trying. They jumped in, sensors active, weapons hot, every crew member alert and ready. Torin maintained constant communication with the fleet commander, demanding updates every 30 seconds. The reports came back normal, empty space, no contacts, no threats, nothing but the void and distant stars. The fleet began their search pattern, spreading out to cover maximum area. 12 minutes into the operation, every single ship went dark. 300 warships, thousands of crew members, simply gone. The last transmission from the fleet commander was a confused report about sensor ghosts, contacts that appeared and disappeared too quickly to track. Torin stood alone in his command center, staring at the display. 547 ships lost in 72 hours. No survivors, no debris, no explanation. The border with human space had become a wall of silence that swallowed everything the Harvan sent into it. All fleets withdraw to defensive positions around core worlds, Torin ordered. His voice remained steady, but his mandibles clicked in patterns that betrayed his fear. Establish a perimeter. Nothing crosses the border until we understand what is happening. Across the galaxy, other species monitored the situation with growing alarm. The Harvan Concordat controlled 89 systems and commanded the third largest fleet in known space. They had been the galaxy's dominant military power for 3 generations. Watching them lose over 500 ships without explanation sent ripples of fear through every government. The Ularn Dominion increased their border patrols. The Kelvin Assembly recalled their deep space explorers. Species who had never worried about military threats suddenly began upgrading their defensive networks. If something could make the Harvan fleet disappear, nothing in the galaxy was safe. Meanwhile, in the darkness between stars, patterns emerged that only the most sophisticated sensors could detect. Gravitational distortions, energy signatures that appeared for microseconds before vanishing. Ships moving through space that somehow avoided every detection grid, every scanner, every observation post. Human ships, dozens of them, hundreds of them, moving through the void like ghosts, like shadows, like things that had learned to exist between the spaces where others looked. They did not destroy the Harvan vessels they encountered. Destruction left debris, and debris told stories. Instead, they did something far more frightening. They made the Harvan ships disappear, transported crews to holding facilities light years away, towed the empty vessels to locations no scanner could find, left nothing behind but questions and fear. The Harvan thought they were fighting an enemy. They did not understand they were being given a demonstration. On Earth, in facilities buried deep. Beneath the surface, teams monitored the operation with clinical precision. Every Harvan ship location tracked, every movement calculated. The galaxy had assumed humanity's patience meant weakness. They had traded with humans, negotiated with humans, dismissed humans as irrelevant to the real power structures of galactic civilization. None of them had asked the obvious question. If humanity had the resources to maintain 40% of galactic trade routes, the technology to broker peace between species who shared no common ground, the capability to establish colonies on dozens of worlds across hundreds of light years, what else might they have? What capabilities might they have built in silence while the galaxy assumed they were harmless? The answer was moving through space right now, unseen and unstoppable. And the Harvan were about to understand exactly how much humanity had chosen not to show them. Talver 3 rotated peacefully below the orbital defense network. 800 million Harvan lived on the fortress world, their cities spreading across 3 continents. Massive shipyards circled the planet like steel moons, manufacturing the dreadnoughts that made the Concordat fleet so feared. This was the heart of Harvan military power, protected by 217 warships and enough orbital weapons platforms to shatter any attack fleet. Admiral Torin had relocated his command here after the mysterious disappearances at the border. If something was hunting Harvan ships, it would find Talver 3 impossible to crack. The defenses were absolute. The fleet was ready. Whatever lurked in the darkness would break against these walls or reveal itself trying. Sensors detected the hyperspace breach at 600 station time. A single ship dropped into normal space at the system's edge. Harvan scanners identified it immediately. Human design, destroyer class, approximately 300 meters long, alone. Every weapon in the system locked onto it. Fire control solutions calculated. The fleet moved into intercept positions. Torin watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Finally, the mystery would end. One human ship against the might of Talver 3, it would be over in seconds. The human ship began broadcasting on all frequencies. Audio, video, text, every communication band simultaneously. Torin's translator rendered the message in flat, mechanical tones. This is Captain Amy Ortiz of the UESS. Perseverance, you have 1 hour to evacuate all civilian populations from Talver 3. This is your only warning. I repeat, you have 1 hour. Evacuate all civilians immediately. Torin's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter or rage. One ship, one human ship delivering an ultimatum to the most heavily defended world in Concordat space. The audacity was almost admirable. Almost. Destroy it, Torin ordered. The Harvan fleet opened fire. 217 warships unleashed everything they had. Energy beams that could cut through planetary crust. Missiles that could crack moons. Kinetic rounds moving at relativistic speeds. Enough firepower to sterilize a solar system, all focused on one small destroyer. Nothing reached it. The weapons simply stopped existing before they arrived. Energy beams dispersed into harmless light. Missiles went inert and drifted away. Kinetic rounds vaporized as if they had hit an invisible wall of pure energy. The human ship sat in space, completely untouched, not even attempting to evade. Again, Torin ordered, pour everything into it. The fleet fired continuously. Weapons batteries overheating. Power plants straining. Every ship committed to overwhelming the single target through sheer volume of destruction. The space around the human destroyer became a storm of lethal energy, a kill zone that nothing could survive. The Perseverance broadcast another message. You have 58 minutes remaining. I strongly suggest you begin evacuation procedures. Torin studied his tactical display. The human ship had not fired a single shot, had not moved from its position, had not done anything except exist and make demands. This made no sense. Ships needed to evade, to maneuver, to respond. But the Perseverance just floated there, ignoring the greatest concentration of firepower the Harvan could produce. Fleet Commander Torin, Captain Ortiz's voice came through clearly despite the weapon's fire. I can see you are unconvinced. Allow me to demonstrate why you should take this warning seriously. The Perseverance moved, not faster than light, not even particularly fast by military standards. It simply accelerated toward the Harvan fleet at what scanners read as a leisurely .3 light speed. Defensive positions adjusted. Overlapping fields of fire established. Every ship in the fleet prepared to annihilate the destroyer the moment it came into effective range. It never got that far. Blue light rippled across the hull of the Perseverance, spreading outward in waves that Harvan sensors could not properly analyze. The light touched the nearest Harvan warship. The vessel's weapons went dead. Engines stopped. Shields collapsed. Life support continued functioning, but every military system simply ceased to exist. Not damaged, not destroyed, just gone as if they had never been installed. The blue light kept spreading. One ship after another fell silent. Weapons melted into slag. Engines fused solid. Shield generators became lumps of useless metal. In 11 minutes, 217 warships became 217 lifeboats, drifting in space with their crews alive but helpless. You have 47 minutes remaining, Captain Ortiz broadcast. I am now going to give you another reason to evacuate. Please observe. Massive transport ships began appearing throughout the system, not human designs, These were civilian transports from a dozen different species, all bearing neutral registry codes. Torin realized with growing horror that humanity had not just planned this attack. They had coordinated with other species to provide evacuation capability. How long had they been preparing? How many others knew this was coming? Any Harvan civilian who wishes to leave may board these transports, Captain Ortiz continued. You have 6 hours to evacuate. I strongly recommend you use this time wisely. When the 6 hours expire, every military installation on Talver 3 in orbit and throughout this system will cease to exist. Choose accordingly. Torin made the hardest decision of his military career. Begin civilian evacuation, all of them. Get every non-combatant off this world. The evacuation took 4 hours. 800 million Harvan boarding transports, some willingly, others dragged by family members who understood what was about to happen. The human ship waited patiently. More human vessels appeared, smaller ones, moving through the system with casual disregard for the disabled Harvan fleet. When the last civilian transport cleared the evacuation zone, Captain Ortiz sent one final message. Thank you for your cooperation. What happens next is not personal. It is necessary. Blue light spread across Talver 3. Every shipyard simply stopped existing. Orbital platforms vanished as if they had never been there. Military bases, weapons factories, training facilities all gone, not destroyed in explosions, not reduced to rubble, simply erased from existence with surgical precision that left civilian infrastructure completely untouched. The fortress world of Talver 3 became a civilian world in 17 minutes. The heart of Harvan military power removed so completely that future archaeologists would wonder if it had ever existed at all. Ambassador David Cole's message reached every government, every military command, every civilian network across the galaxy simultaneously. The broadcast was simple, clear, and carried the weight of absolute certainty. This is Ambassador David Cole of Earth. We are dismantling the Harvan Concordat. All other species will stand down. This is not a negotiation. 23 human ships appeared across all 89 Harvan systems at the same instant. The coordination alone was terrifying. The species of the galaxy had tried for generations to synchronize fleet movements across multiple star systems. The logistics were considered impossible. Humanity had just proven otherwise. Each system received the same pattern. Human ships arrived. Civilian evacuation warnings broadcast. Military forces disabled. Infrastructure removed, not destroyed. Removed. The precision was surgical, the restraint absolute, the message unmistakable. The Ularn Dominion watched 3 Harvan systems fall in a single day. Their military strategists ran simulations trying to understand how humanity accomplished what should have been impossible. Every simulation failed. The technology involved exceeded anything the galaxy had encountered. Mobilize the First Armada, the Ularn Supreme Commander ordered. We will restore order to this chaos. The Ularn First Armada was legendary. 800 warships representing 5 generations of military development. They had never lost a battle. Their formation alone was studied in every military academy across known space. They jumped into Harvan space with weapons active, prepared to engage the human forces and demonstrate that the Ularn would not tolerate this disruption. A single human frigate met them at the border. Not a battleship, not a fleet. One frigate roughly the same size as a Ularn scout vessel. The armada formed up, ready to demonstrate overwhelming force. The human ship transmitted a simple message. Supreme Commander, we have detected your fleet movements. We are here to observe. Please continue with whatever action you were planning. The frigate moved into orbit above the Ularn home world, 300 light-years away, before the Supreme Commander could respond. It simply appeared there, having crossed the distance in less time than it took to form the thought. The planet held 17 billion Ularn civilians. Every military installation in the system locked weapons onto the frigate. We are just here to observe, the frigate broadcast again. Please continue. The Supreme Commander stared at the tactical display. One ship, somehow across 300 light years in an instant, now sitting above his home world, untouchable, simply waiting. The implication was crystal clear. If humanity wanted, they could do to the Ularn exactly what they were doing to the Harvan, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop them. "Stand down," the Supreme Commander ordered. "Recall the First Armada, immediate withdrawal to defensive positions." The human frigate transmitted once more. "Thank you for your wisdom, Supreme Commander. We have no quarrel with the Ularn Dominion. We suggest you keep it that way." Then it vanished, leaving the entire Ularn High Command staring at empty space and contemplating how close they had come to provoking Earth's full attention. Across the galaxy, species who had maintained conflicts for centuries suddenly found reasons to negotiate. The Kelvin Assembly and the Dreth Collective had been at war for 90 years. They signed a peace treaty in 48 hours. The Merchant Coalition and the Resource Union ended their trade dispute within a day. Species who had never agreed on anything found common ground instantly. No one wanted to be the next problem humanity had to solve. The method was too clean, too precise, too absolutely unstoppable. The Harvan were not being exterminated. They were being disarmed and relocated with care that bordered on gentle. Every civilian evacuated safely. Every non-combatant protected. But their military power was being erased so thoroughly that future historians would struggle to believe the Concordat had ever been a threat. In the Harvan core systems, Admiral Torin made his final stand. He gathered every remaining warship from across Concordat space. 1,400 vessels, the largest concentration of military force ever assembled. If humanity wanted to finish the Harvan, they would have to come through this fleet. 3 human ships appeared in the system. Just 3. Torin would have laughed if he had not seen what one human destroyer accomplished at Talver 3. These were larger vessels, sleeker, covered in that strange blue light that meant weapons and engines and shields simply ceased functioning when it touched them. The Harvan fleet opened fire immediately. 1,400 ships unleashing everything they had built, everything they had learned, everything they had developed across generations of military dominance. The firepower was enough to crack planets, to ignite atmospheres, to boil oceans. The 3 human ships sat unmoved in the center of the storm. Then they moved, not attacking, not destroying, simply existing in a way that made Harvan weapons irrelevant. Blue light rippled outward. 1,400 warships fell silent in 8 minutes, not destroyed, disabled, crews alive, weapons gone, engines dead. Torin sat in his command chair aboard a ship that no longer functioned as anything more than a floating habitat. His bridge crew worked frantically to restore any system, any capability. Nothing responded. The most powerful fleet the Harvan had ever assembled had become a debris field of living tombs in less time than it took to eat a meal. The human ships broadcast a new message. "Harvan military forces, you are defeated. Evacuate to the civilian transports now arriving in system. You will be taken to resettlement worlds where you can rebuild peaceful lives. Your military capability is over. Your civilian population will be protected. Choose wisely." Torin watched the tactical display as transport ships arrived. Dozens of them. Hundreds. From species across the galaxy, all coordinated, all prepared. Humanity had not just planned this operation. They had built a coalition, convinced other species to help with evacuation and resettlement, organized the largest humanitarian effort in galactic history, while simultaneously dismantling the third most powerful military force in known space. In 72 hours, across 89 star systems, with 0 civilian casualties. The precision was inhuman. The capability was terrifying. The restraint was what made it impossible to resist. Torin evacuated. What else could he do? The diplomatic chamber on Meridian 7 had never been so crowded. Ambassador David Cole walked through corridors packed with representatives from 247 species. Every government in known space had sent someone. Some sent their highest leaders. The chamber that once held 12 delegations now overflowed with beings who had traveled across the galaxy for one reason: to hear what Earth had to say. David entered the chamber. Silence fell instantly. Every eye, every sensor, every form of perception turned toward him. The Harvin delegation sat in the back, their once proud military leaders now civilians wearing simple clothes, their mandibles still. Former Fleet Admiral Torin was among them. He would not meet David's eyes. The Ularn Supreme Commander occupied a seat near the front. The Kelvin Assembly Premier sat beside former enemies from the Dreth Collective. Species who had fought wars for generations now shared the same space, united by one thing. They all wanted to understand what humanity had done, and more importantly, why. David walked to the center of the circular chamber. No podium, no display screens, no weapons, just one human standing in a room full of beings who had just watched their understanding of galactic power structures completely collapse. "Thank you for coming," David began. "I know many of you have questions. I will answer what I can, but first, I need you to understand something about humans that you have missed for 60 years. He turned slowly, making sure every species could see his face, could read whatever expression their biology allowed them to interpret. "For 60 years, we came in peace. We traded honestly. We negotiated fairly. We shared our discoveries. We helped broker peace between species who had fought since before we reached the stars, and you mistook our patience for weakness." The chamber remained silent. David continued. "The Harvin killed 2.3 million of our people, men, women, children, destroyed 3 colony worlds that had no military value, no strategic importance. They called it pest control. They laughed about it in this very chamber while other species watched and said nothing." He paused, letting that sink in. "We could have killed 800 billion Harvin in response. We could have turned every Harvin world into ash. We could have made their species a memory that others would whisper about as a warning. We chose not to." Former Fleet Admiral Torin's mandibles clicked once. David looked directly at him. "We dismantled your military in 72 hours across 89 star systems. We could have done it in 7. We gave you time to evacuate. We gave you time to save everyone. We transported your civilians to resettlement worlds. We protected them during the transition. We ensured that not one of the 800 million Harvin on Talver 3 died when we removed your shipyards." David turned back to address the full chamber. "Do you understand what that means? We had the capability to kill billions. We chose to save them instead. That choice is what makes us human, not our weapons, not our technology, our choice." The Ularn Supreme Commander stood. "Ambassador Cole, I must ask, where did you hide this military capability? How long have you possessed it?" "We never hid it," David replied. "We simply never needed to use it. Every human merchant ship you saw was built on the same manufacturing lines as our warships. Every trading station had the same defensive systems as our military outposts. Every civilian facility included military-grade technology. We built all of this in the open, and you never noticed because you assumed merchants could not be soldiers." A representative from the Kelvin Assembly spoke up. "But why? Why build such overwhelming force if you intended to use it for peace?" "Because peace requires strength," David said. "For 60 years we hoped our presence, our trade, our diplomacy would be enough. We hoped the galaxy would learn to solve conflicts without violence. Some of you did, many did not. The Harvin proved that hope alone was insufficient." He walked toward the Harvin delegation. Torin finally looked up, meeting David's eyes. "We don't want your species erased from history, Admiral. We want you to rebuild. We want your people to have futures, families, lives worth living. But we will never allow you to threaten anyone again. Your military is gone. Your civilians are safe. That is the deal." David addressed the chamber again. "This applies to everyone here. We didn't reveal our capabilities to conquer the galaxy. We revealed them to establish one simple truth. Humans will endure almost anything for peace. We will negotiate, compromise, bend, accommodate. But if you mistake that endurance for weakness, if you harm our people thinking we cannot or will not respond, you will learn what we are capable of when patience ends." He let silence fill the chamber for several long moments. "Our mercy has limits, our wrath does not. Remember that. We could have killed billions. We chose to save them while removing their ability to harm others. That precision, that restraint, that is humanity's true power, and it is a power we hope to never use again. The Kelvin Premier stood, then the Ularn Supreme Commander, then every representative in the chamber rose to their feet, tentacles, appendages, not in submission, not in fear, in understanding. One by one they bowed. Some species had rituals for acknowledging hard truths. Others simply lowered their heads, but every being in that chamber showed respect. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session that lasted 3 minutes. They formally recognized the 2.3 million humans who died. They established an annual Memorial Day. They created protocols for conflict resolution that every species signed immediately. 3 species with active wars announced peace negotiations before leaving the chamber. David watched it happen with mixed emotions. The galaxy was changing, but the cost had been so high. 2.3 million people dead, an entire species militarily dismantled, peace enforced through demonstration of overwhelming power. This was not the future he had hoped for when humanity first reached the stars. But it was perhaps the future the galaxy needed. Sometimes peace required more than hope. Sometimes it required proof that the cost of violence exceeded any possible gain. Humanity had provided that proof. Now they would see if the lesson took hold. 6 months passed before anyone realized what they should have noticed immediately. The galaxy experienced its longest period without warfare in recorded history. Conflicts that had burned for generations simply stopped. Trade routes that had required armed escorts operated with civilian ships. Border disputes resolved through negotiation rather than fleet movements. Historians would later call it the Terran Peace, though humanity enforced nothing. They did not patrol trade routes. They did not mediate disputes. They did not threaten violence against those who broke treaties. Earth's military remained within human space, visible but inactive. The peace held itself through a simple truth every species now understood. No one wanted to be the reason humanity acted again. Captain Amy Ortiz guided her shuttle through the atmosphere of New Portland. The colony world had been the first target of the Harvan attack, the place where 800,000 humans died in orbital bombardment. Now it served a different purpose. Earth had declared all 3 attacked colonies as memorial grounds. No rebuilding, no development, just remembrance. The shuttle landed near what used to be the capital city. Amy walked across ground that had been turned to glass by weapons fire. Flowers grew now, millions of them, each one planted by hand, each one representing a person who died here. Red roses for those under 10 years old. White lilies for those between 10 and 20, blue forget-me-nots for adults. The gardens stretched across the horizon, a sea of color where cities once stood. Amy found the section she was looking for. The children's garden, 12,000 red roses, each with a name. She knelt beside one rose bush and read the small plaque. Sarah Ortiz, age 7, loved stars and stories, wanted to be a pilot like her mother. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you," Amy whispered. "I'm sorry I was so far away when it happened." "Captain Ortiz." Amy turned. A young Harvan stood several meters away, barely into adulthood based on the pale coloring of their chitin. The Harvan trembled, mandibles clicking nervously. "Yes," Amy stood slowly, making no sudden movements. "I was on Talver 3 when you came, when you warned us." The Harvan's translator made their voice sound mechanical, but Amy could hear the emotion underneath. "You saved my family, my parents, my siblings. We evacuated on the transports you provided. We have a new home now on Kelvin 4. We are safe because of you." Amy said nothing. What could she say? The young Harvan moved closer, still trembling. "But I don't understand. You lost your daughter here. The Harvan killed her. You had every reason to kill all of us. Every reason to destroy everything we had. Why didn't you?" Amy looked at the rose bush, at her daughter's name, at the thousands of other names spreading across the glass field. "Because that's not who we are. We ended your military because it was necessary. We saved your people because it was right. The difference between those two things is what makes us human." "I don't deserve your mercy," the young Harvan said quietly. "Probably not," Amy agreed. "But my daughter deserved to live, and she didn't get that. The universe isn't about what we deserve. It's about what we choose to do with the power we have. We chose to use our power to stop the killing, not to cause more of it. The Harvan was silent for a long moment. Then they knelt beside the rose bush, mandibles moving in what Amy's translator interpreted as prayer. When they stood, they met Amy's eyes directly. I will remember her name, Sarah Ortiz. I will remember all these names. My people will remember what happened here and what you chose not to do to us. I promise you this. Amy nodded. The Harvan left, walking carefully between the flowers, making sure not to disturb a single petal. Amy watched them go, then returned her attention to her daughter's memorial. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out in 1,000 different ways. Harvan civilians integrated into new communities. Former enemies cooperated on trade agreements. Species who had never trusted each other found common ground. The change was not instant, not complete, but it was real. On Earth, they built a different kind of memorial, simple black stone carved with simple words. They came in peace. They died for it. We ensure their deaths meant something. Every species in the galaxy observed the dedication ceremony. Broadcasts reached 247 worlds simultaneously. For 1 hour, the entire galaxy paused in shared silence. Remembering the dead, acknowledging what humanity had lost, understanding what humanity had chosen to do with that loss. Ambassador David Cole attended the ceremony, standing beside former Fleet Admiral Torin. The Harvan had requested to be there to bear witness. David had agreed. Some on Earth wanted the Harvan band, wanted them to carry their shame in isolation. David disagreed. Shame without witness became bitterness. Shame acknowledged became the foundation for change. I cannot give you back your dead, Torin said quietly. I cannot undo what my people did, but I can promise that every Harvan child will learn what happened here. They will learn what you lost and what you chose. We will carry this knowledge across generations. See that you do, David replied, because if we have to teach this lesson again, we won't be as gentle. Torin's mandibles clicked in what might have been acknowledgement or agreement. The galaxy is fortunate that humans value mercy as much as they value strength. The galaxy is fortunate we value anything at all, David said. We could have been like the Harvan, taking what we wanted, destroying what opposed us. We chose differently. Every day we continue choosing differently. Remember that when you teach your children. The galaxy held its silence, not an empty silence. A silence full of understanding, full of memory, full of the knowledge that peace was preferable to the alternative. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had not imposed their will through continuous force. They had simply demonstrated, once with absolute clarity, what they were capable of when pushed beyond patience. Earth's retaliation was measured not in ships destroyed or worlds conquered, but in the silence that followed. A silence that spoke louder than any weapon. The galaxy had learned, and in learning found peace.